Welcome to the Stadium Pulse, everybody, a college football show where we will only talk about college football around here. And I hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your week because we are officially 7 days, no, less than 7 days. This is game week 0. We're here. College football is officially back, and I am so excited to actually get into the college football season. We have a fantastic show for you. As we have gotten this close, it's about time we make predictions. It's about time we talk about national title contenders, and that is going to be the theme of today's show, where we're only going to be talking about the national title picture. You know, traditionally, I want to be able to talk about maybe the group of 5. In the upcoming week, we will be previewing, who could be that at-large bid to potentially get into the college football playoff. But we have to talk about the national title, the big trophy that everyone's trying to achieve and accomplish and get to at some point. So why not we dive in? You see the title, you see the thumbnail, you know exactly what we will be talking about here today, and it's going to be the Ohio State Buckeyes, your defending national champions. Ohio State, in my eyes, I don't see as a program this season, just in the vacuum of 2025, as a team that is more than likely to go back to back. I think it's just too much to replace both offensive and defensive coordinators, to replace that much talent that left the building. Because if you were just to see the preview magazine for college football and it said you have the best player in the overall college football space with Jeremiah Smith, you have the best defensive player in Caleb Downs, and honestly, you can flip between the two on who you think is the best overall. That's an easy sell. They won a national championship last year. These are easy things to buy into in terms of potentially going back to back and winning another national championship. But let's peel back the onion a little bit. Let's look a little bit deeper and understand that there's no Chip Kelly. There's no more Knowles at the defensive coordinator position. The strengths of this team are going to end up having new faces and new players. Now, I will give Ryan Day the credit that he deserves for creating Ohio State into the machine that we know it is today, which is just consistent 5-star acquisition after 5-star, just the ability to bring in so much talent. It's almost gross, the amount of talent that Ohio State's able to bring in, but you still are asking a lot. And from the very limited sample size that we have seen from the college football playoff, it's hard for me to imagine such a young team replacing a new quarterback, which it sounds like we talked about it last episode. We were talking about Julian saying more than likely being the quarterback for the upcoming season. Now, Keen Holes is still definitively in that conversation. It sounds like it's not going to be decided on until maybe for another week. It sounds like they're going to wait to get a couple more scrimmages in, but it sounds, for the most part, Julian Sand has not definitively taken that job. So that's going to be a question mark. You're replacing Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. That's another question mark. I like the pieces that they brought in. They brought a running back in from West Virginia. They have a talented running back that has been with the program. It's a question mark regardless. When I say a question mark, it's not assuming that Ohio State all of a sudden is going to have quarterback, running back problems. It is questions that could potentially stack up in a long list that could hold them back from winning a national championship, because that's the question that I'm trying to answer. What teams could win the national championship? I think college football playoff is pretty much a lock for Ohio State. They have to beat Texas week 1 or they don't, because at the end of the day, it's a non-conference game. The hype with that game is going to be massive, and I'm not trying to discredit it because it's going to be something that I'm very excited about. But at the end of the day, we get to the Michigan game and we're looking back, and it's not going to be something that holds them back from a Big Ten championship. It's, if anything, just going to be a good starting place to understand what are the strengths and weaknesses for Ohio State. They have Penn State at home. They have to go to Michigan and see if they can finally, after the past four or five seasons, they've not been able to get the best of Michigan. Last year, they should have definitively beaten them. And what happened? One of the craziest upsets I've ever seen, with a team that could not throw the forward pass. It was like watching 1960 football all over again, where Michigan basically was just running the football and playing good defense, and that worked against the defending national champions. In hindsight, it's crazy. You do have some concerning, potential pitfalls. You go to Illinois. There's a lot of hype with Illinois. I'm not on that hype train, but a lot of people are more bullish on what Illinois could be with all the returning production. And it's a road game at the end of the day, so you have to be wary for that. And then you have to go to Washington. I think the trenches are going to be the problem there for Washington, but Damon Williams is a dynamic quarterback. And I understand there's this notion that Ohio State is almost indestructible against any of the other Big Ten teams. You're indestructible until you're not, especially in college football. So these are potential games that they could definitely drop. I mentioned the quarterback. I mentioned the running back. I didn't mention the tight end on the offensive side of the ball because Max Clare, Purdue transfer, I think is going to be a dynamic, incredibly good tight end. I think he's going to be fantastic. I think he's a great NFL prospect. Truly, I think when we're talking about Max Clare, we look back and he's going to be on a lot of top 5, top 10 lists in terms of the position of the tight end. I think the thing that really concerns me after all those questions that I have with the quarterback, the running back, the change of brain power with Brian Hartline at the offensive coordinator position, Matt Patricia. Guys, Matt Patricia is the defensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Things that were not on my bingo card going into 2025 whatsoever. I don't know what to expect from a guy like Matt Patricia. I have a lot of negative feelings after what happened with the Detroit Lions, but maybe he could still coach the defensive side of the ball. It's the offensive line and the defensive line. And specifically when we talk about the defensive line, you have 3 NFL talents that left the building. Tyleik Williams, I think, was a fantastic defensive tackle. I think Jack Sawyer, JTT, these are very talented players that also had a ton of experience. I think when we're talking about the leadership and the experience qualities that Ohio State has and what they're going to be missing going into the season is when they got punched in the mouth by Michigan at the end of last year and people were saying Ryan Day should be fired. It's over for them. They're going to get to the college football playoff and it's going to be done. You had seniority on this team to rally the troops and go smack Tennessee around, go smack Oregon, make it all the way to the college football national championship and win the whole thing. What happens when this team that has so much new, so much unfamiliar, not nationally known names at the forefront of your program, what happens when they get punched in the face? Because it's going to happen somewhere. It could happen week 1. Arch Manning goes and lights you up for 330 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no picks, and Texas walks into your building and smacks you around. I know I just said in the long run, it may not make a big impact, but we're going to find out quickly if that does happen, what is this Ohio State team made of very early on? Now, are they college football playoff contenders? Of course. Could they make a run in the college football playoff? Of course. But do I see them as a definitive team going into the season as a national title contender? And when I say that, a team that is going to win the whole thing, like we felt confident going into last year with the amount of talent that they brought in, I'm not on that train. I don't see it this year. So you may ask yourself, well, Tegan, you don't feel good about Ohio State. They have those 2 incredible players. What programs do you think could win a national championship in the 2025 season? Well, that's our second topic today. I apologize. We're going to do the topic of who could potentially win the national championship. I got about 5 programs. 5 programs I believe are going to potentially win the national championship this year. If it's not any of these 5 programs, I would be shocked. That's no discredit to any team that doesn't get mentioned here, but we have 5 specific programs that I believe could win the whole thing. First one is Clemson. If you do not follow me on Twitter, if you don't follow any of my socials, Clemson is my number 1 team going into the season. And that's for a couple of reasons. I think one of the trends that we have seen with the college football playoff is when we get to the NFL draft, the team that has the most players drafted ends up winning the national championship. And it's been pretty consistent. Now, I know it could be a flawed logic of, well, they're going to have the most eyes on them. They're going to be in the biggest game. They're going to have more opportunities than most teams to get that many players. But I also think there's some merit to it. And when you go look at Clemson, do they match up with the depth of a Texas, the depth of an Alabama, even maybe an Ohio State? Probably not, because Clemson doesn't lean into the portal as much as they probably should. But this year's a little bit different because somehow, some way, Dabo Swinney's gotten some really talented players from the portal this year that just kicks their ceiling a little bit higher than usual. But what makes them really enticing is at 3 levels of their defense, defensive line, linebacker, and secondary, they have All-Americans. They have multiple All-Americans specifically in their defensive line. Then we flip to the offensive side of the ball. Sure, they're losing Phil Maffa, who I've interviewed, great guy, great running back, but the star of the show is going to be Cade Klubnik in this wide receiver room. And one of the most notable stories with Clemson is the resurgence of the wide receiver for this program. Let's not forget how dynamic they were at wide receiver for such a long time. They were one of the best programs in pumping out wide receivers during the 2010s. It was remarkable. And then they started to falter a little bit. They started to go to the wayside and not be as dynamic. And now they have guys like Bryant Westco, who I think are really damn good. As you just look through the entire program, they have continuity and they have NFL talent everywhere. I think it would be crazy to say that they can't win a national championship, especially knowing they're in the ACC. Knowing that they have a very easy schedule in front of them post LSU, sure, you have Georgia Tech, which is going to be a tough one on the road. There's some moments in the ACC, but it's not a gauntlet when we're talking about like a Big Ten SEC program. And I think they could have a very good position to get a bye going into the college football playoff. And with a veteran team like this, I think it'd be dumb not to think Clemson can't win a national championship. Alabama is a team that has just risen up my rankings so much during the offseason, especially as we've gotten closer to the start of the season. As you look for a hole on this roster or a potential weakness, you come to the realization that they have so much talent there that it's hard for me not to buy in for Alabama to be a national title contender to win the whole thing. I have them as my number 2 in the upcoming preseason top 25. You point to Ty Simpson is the first thing you're more than likely going to do. When you have a question about Alabama, you don't question the wide receivers because Ryan Williams, Horton, many others are super dynamic. The running back room, Jam Miller reportedly has an injury, but he's going to be back for the start of the season. And even then, the guys behind him are going to get some more burn in the fall camp, and I think they're really good. The offensive line could be the best in the country. Their offensive line has NFL talent littered across the board. Caden Proctor, I'm going to be very light when I say this, has the ceiling and capabilities of like a Trent Williams. Like, I'm not saying he is, because Trent Williams arguably is the greatest tackle we've ever seen play the sport of football. But he has that ceiling. He has the tools and capabilities to get there. We flip to the defense. NFL talent, returning talent littered. I think it could be the best secondary in the country. There is just incredible freaks of nature in terms of talent and proven capabilities in this secondary that I think is going to be very, very good. So we go back to Ty Simpson, and you come to the realization he really just has to be a point guard. And you have Ryan Grubb, who I think his schematics, I had a lot of problems with. I'll be transparent. I'm a Seahawks fan. I know about Ryan Grubb, and it was not working at the NFL level. I think he needs to adapt as a head coach in terms, or as a offensive coordinator, to adapt his running schemes for the NFL. But in college, it works. In college, what he wants to run will work. And he's also with Kalen DeBoer, a head coach that I've given a ton of grace for last season, because I think it wasn't as sunshine and rainbows as Nick Saban left it. As much as there's so much talent with this roster, I think Kalen DeBoer, and many have spoken about this, was kind of doing damage control in a sense that he couldn't really set the standard. He couldn't really set what he wanted, with the fear that he was going to lose some talent. And I think he really made the most of what he could. Last year, we saw the ceiling of beating Georgia. But with the volatility of a guy like Jalen Milroe, you were doomed for an Oklahoma incident. And they were still knocking on the door of a college football playoff spot. And I understand people are a little bit sour on him solely for what we saw with Michigan in the bowl game, which is rightful in the sense of you had another Oklahoma incident with Jalen Milroe in terms of inconsistency. I just think Ty Simpson, though he has not played a ton of football, he's going to at least be consistent. I don't need him to be dynamic. I don't need him to reach a crazy ceiling where this team is going to be driven by the quarterback position. I need this team to control the football and just get the ball into those playmakers' hands. I think of Horton, Williams, and others, Hale as well. Another team I want to mention is Penn State. I think Penn State pretty straightforward. You're bringing back 2 dynamic running backs, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, Drew Aller. The question for them is the wide receivers. If Penn State can get production out of the wide receiver room, they're a definitive national championship contender. There's no way around it. You can point to Drew Aller, but I just think he has needed so much support with these wide receivers. Early returns from fall camp, it looks like and it sounds like it's going to work out potentially. They have a favorable schedule once again in the Big Ten. I mean, the notion that James Franklin, it's pretty simple. When they're favored, he's going to win the game. When they're not favored, that's where it gets real risky. That's where you get real concerned. The defense, I'm not going to have any problems. Yeah, they're losing guys like Abdul Carter, some safeties, Kevin Winston. I think they're going to be pretty damn good on the defensive side of the ball, especially now that they have Jim Knowles, a national championship winning defensive coordinator. Texas, straightforward. If Arch Manning works like we think he's going to work, national championship contender, Texas. They're the preseason number 1 by the AP and coaches poll. I have questions about their offensive line, but it's easy to buy into Texas. It's easy to buy into the fact that they have one of the most talented rosters. In terms of talent acquisition, I think they're second to no one. Texas is a well-oiled machine. Sark is due for a national championship appearance, not even a win, just an appearance. And I think they're going to have 2 years of Arch Manning to do it. They have an incredible wide receiver room, incredible running backs, one of the best defenses in the country. It's easy to say Texas. The last one I do want to mention before we move off of the teams, because we're going to talk coaches next. LSU is one that I am taking a flyer on. LSU is a team that I think could win a national championship this season. A lot of people are going to push back on that. What concerns me really is Nussmeier and this recent injury that could linger throughout the season. But outside of that, I believe in Blake Baker. I believe in this defense. I believe that LSU takes a leap on the defensive side of the ball, something that we have not seen in a while. And what we really specifically haven't seen is great defensive back play. Stamps at corner, I think, is going to be a star. I think their front 7 has depth and quality. The biggest thing is Harold Perkins at the star position, something that LSU fans have been clamoring for so long. And I understand he's coming off a torn ACL. I think he's finally going to find the position that is best suited for his skill set, and that skill set can wreck games. Harold Perkins could be a game wrecker again, like we remember what he was doing against Arkansas, where he was racking up sacks. He was just changing the game on the defensive side of the ball. I think him going to the star position makes all the world of a difference. And on the offensive side of the ball, as long as that offensive line, I've heard the concerns in fall camp, it's getting less and less confident that I think LSU could win the SEC or even a national championship. But I'm sticking to my guns, and I believe that the transfers that they've brought in aren't going to be the end-all be-all for this team, but they're going to be the icing on the cake of a potential national championship run. I'm one to say that Brian Kelly is not some overhyped, overrated head coach. There's a lot of nuance and context for the past couple of seasons that I think people refuse to acknowledge. But LSU does have to show me a lot. That's the largest road to getting a national championship compared to the 4 others that we're just talking about. Y'all want to talk about coaches? Before we talk about some head coaches, which we're going to talk about who potentially could win a national championship, this is all powered by Kretschmann Media. I want you guys to go check out the other channels. You click on the Stadium Pulse, you can easily find the CEO Sports Show. There's so much great content that Kretschmann Media is pumping out, and we have had such an incredible start. I'll say this, there's 6 people watching this right now. We started out and there was 0. I appreciate every single one of you guys just watching the show, liking, comment, any kind of interactions. It is my best part of my day, getting the interactions with you guys, whether it's positive or negative. It means the world to talk some college football with you guys. And I promise you, the people that are pumping out this, the media company that we have been building here, put so much love and care into these channels. So I would love for you guys to go check them out and take the time, because this is not the only channel for Kretschmann Media. There's so many others out there, and we are going to be building something pretty special. I promise you, if you know what's going on in the background, you'd be just excited as I am growingly smiling right now. So it'd mean the world if you guys go check them out. For the last thing we're going to talk about today, it's going to be kind of similar. to the programs that we were talking about. But I wanted to expand it a little bit. What coaches, as we are at the midpoint of the decade, we have Kirby Smart, Dabo Swinney, now Ryan Day, our national championship winning head coaches. The list is very limited for head coaches that have won a national championship as we enter a new era of college football. I mean, for God's sake, Big Ten want to do 28 teams in the college football playoff. It's a new era. Things are changing. I have a list of coaches that potentially could win their first national championship, and I want to hear what you think of each of these coaches. Who do you think is more likely? Who do you think I didn't mention here that could rise up the ranks? I think an easy one is Kenny Dillingham, a super young head coach for Arizona State. Do I think he's going to win a national championship at Arizona State? No, that's not what I'm saying. But a guy of his caliber is going to get a major offer from a large program from the Big Ten and the SEC. And I'll be very curious if he ever moves off of Arizona State. But he seems to believe that they could build something special at Arizona State. The easy one, the first head coach that I think is most likely to win a national championship over the next 5 seasons is going to be Kalen DeBoer, because he has a Lamborghini of a program. I criticized a little bit about Alabama during the handoff with Nick Saban to DeBoer, but at the end of the day, the infrastructure, the talent that's already with that program, and knowing who Kalen DeBoer is and the fact that he just wins football games and he's going to do that with Alabama, it'd be naive for me to say that they are not going to potentially win a national championship for the next 5 seasons. And Kalen DeBoer being one of those head coaches, it'd be dumb for me not to say them. I think Dan Lanning's an easy one. Dan Lanning has done remarkable work for Oregon. We are all still waiting for that next gear. What's next for Dan Lanning? They were the number 1 seed, undefeated last season. It's felt like this offseason, they haven't really had that same level of hype that you had last year. I mean, think about it. Yeah, you got smacked around by the defending national champions now. And you had beaten them in the regular season at home. You won the Big Ten in your first year. You feel like there should be more hype with Oregon, but you're dealing with some challenges in the wide receiver room. Evan Stewart, unfortunately, out for the season, it sounds like. You're breaking in a new quarterback. The offensive line is a huge question mark. You did invest a ton from the transfer portal, but there's some questions. But this is not just for the 2025 season. This is for the next 5 years. And knowing how psychotic Dan Lanning can be, the look in his eyes, the competitiveness, the nature of what he is building at Oregon, and knowing the funds that are into this program, knowing what they've been able to do in terms of talent acquisition to the levels that Chip Kelly and many others, Cristobal, had never been able to do at the University of Oregon. I would be dumb if I said Dan Lanning wasn't potentially going to be one of those first national championship winning head coaches. James Franklin, I worry for one reason. I think James Franklin can easily win a national championship, and I think it has to be in 2025. My concern is, unlike the Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisians of the world, who I expect year in and year out to be at that national championship winning level because of what they've been able to build with their programs, I still feel like Penn State has to build up to these moments. For years, ever since Drew Aller got to this campus, it's been building up to 2025. You could have argued 2024 as well, but I think they have been ramping up for this national championship winning moment. And it's this season because you brought back the amount of people that you did and how talented this roster is. But when we get to 2026 and Aller, Catron, Nicholas Singleton have all gone to the NFL draft, then what? Not enough people really talk about that. It's the same thing with like Deion Sanders in Colorado. Once Trav, Shador, Shiloh all left the building, everyone's kind of looking around and saying, well, what's next for Colorado? What's next for Penn State after this year if they don't win a national championship? Obviously, the goal is still the same, but you don't have that same level of hype. I do think James Franklin can be on that list of Kirby Smart, Dabo Swinney, and Ryan Day, but I feel like it's not going to be one of those things where he is consistently circling the national championship space. I think he still has to ramp up with Penn State. I mentioned Steve Sarkisian a little bit. That's an easy one. Sark is going to be a guy that has continuously kept Texas within the space of a national championship. And he has this program at a point where the talent level is always going to be there. It's just whether or not they get the right roll of the dice. The best thing that Ryan Day did for the Ohio State Buckeyes was truly just stay within striking distance. And funny enough, it took them losing to Michigan for the 20th time, it feels like, in a row, in one of the most embarrassing upsets in the entire country, for them to kick it into gear and go on an incredible college football playoff run and win the first ever 12-team playoff. Sarkisian is going to always have Texas within that realm. I think Marcus Freeman, one of the things that I have to figure out with Marcus Freeman is, are you more in the James Franklin space? Do you have to build up to national championship winning rosters? Or is your talent acquisition good enough to where you're more in the Ryan Day, Steve Sarkisian landing kind of space? Because I don't know with Notre Dame right now. Notre Dame is having incredible wins on the recruiting trail. We don't talk about recruiting too much on this channel. Probably going to be something that we sprinkle in a little bit more because I love talking about recruiting. I don't think it gets enough love in 2025. Notre Dame has done a fantastic job on that front. But are they a team that just got to a national championship? A team that can consistently be in that space of getting there? Because I don't think anyone expected them to beat Ohio State. They made it an interesting game, but I don't think anyone was expecting them to win. Can you get to the level where you are now the ones that are the favorites going into that game? I'm curious if Marcus Freeman can get them to that level. The last one I will mention before we close out the show. This is going to be a little biased, but Mike Elko. Only for the fact. The only reason why I think Texas A&M could potentially be a national championship contender and Mike Elko could be one of those coaches that wins a national championship is because based on everything that we have ever seen in terms of building national title winning programs, Texas A&M is not missing a damn thing. Money, player acquisition, the space of when you can get players. They live in the damn state of Texas that is just flooded with NFL talent being pumped out of high school. They are incredibly dynamic in the transfer portal. They're on the front edge of NIL. They're in the SEC. All the ingredients are there. They just have not had a chef in the kitchen to put it all together. And so I'm going to stay consistent. If you took away the maroon helmet and you didn't know what that program was, more times than not, people would be a lot higher on them. And rightfully so. They've been 8-4. They've been wildly underwhelming. Since 2014, I believe they have not won a road-ranked playoff game. I'm not denying any of that with Texas A&M. What I am saying is those teams are not 2025. Those teams are not Mike Elko's teams. Mike Elko is a different head coach who had, I think, a very impressive first year going 8-5. Obviously, the November left a very sour taste in your mouth, but for the next 5 years, there's still going to be a team that has everything that you are looking for in a national title winning head coach. Guys, we are so close to week 1. I mean, like, this is game week. We have already done a preview on this channel. If you want to go check it out, we talked about Iowa State, Kansas State. I may do a quick like 5 minutes later this week just to remind people like, hey, this is my prediction. This is my thoughts on the game. But if you want to go check that out, it's on the channel. We are going to be here Tuesday and Thursday, and then Sunday, just 7 days from now, we're going to be recapping college football games. That I cannot reiterate how excited I am. So truly, it would mean the world if you guys stuck around. Check out the channel. Check out the videos. We're pumping out so much content. Leave a like, sub. Anything means the world. Also, go check out the other channels like I mentioned before. It would mean the world to me because we are truly building something special. But with that in mind, my name is Tegan Randolph. This is powered by Kretschmann Media. This is the Stadium Pulse. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.